on Facebook. Is this your wife? Dawn?
Could be.
She said Silent Night is my all-time favorite, followed closely by Mary Did You Know? That's a good one too. But love listening to any Christmas music. Dawn, I am with you on both of those.
That's great. Meanwhile, Rick wrote us on Facebook as we probably changed the music. I'll be home for Christmas. I worked at the music hall until I retired. I guess we won't change the music. And that song always said the words I was feeling.
That's true.
There we go.
They're all good.
I thought that was kind of in the background. Anyway, keep them coming. We read them all morning long.
The only album I don't want to hear is Chipmunks. They are not Christmas.
Oh, see, that's charming.
I think they're so cute. I think so, because Dave comes in and yells at Alvin, and Alvin's always getting in trouble.
Brian, how do you feel about the barking dogs that do Jingle Bells?
Ridiculous.
Really?
Don't like them.
At the end of this hour, I believe we are going to play. Gavin, what's the name of the company that does the coffee?
That does
Maxwell's?
the coffee?
No.
Keurig?
Black Rifle Coffee Company.
Oh, yeah.
They did a Christmas song, making
Using
noise
guns?
with guns.
Oh, did they really?
It is something you got to see, and we're going to
if we
show
can find
folks at
that,
the end.
that's great.
We're going
Our
to show
viewers
folks
will
at
love
the end
that.
of this show.
All right, well, we're talking about Christmas. You got a Christmas present.
Yep.
Tax relief. It was voted on yesterday. This is something the president ran on, something he's been trying to do, and he had a victory yesterday.
That's right, and he just tweeted this out in the last hour. The massive tax cuts, which the fake news media is desperate to write badly about, so as to please their Democrat bosses, will soon be kicking in and will speak for themselves. Companies are already making big payments to workers. Democrats want to raise taxes, hate these big cuts. That's kind of what we heard yesterday during a celebration on the South Lawn.
Well, one thing is, the reason why I believe a lot to do with the fact that most people don't think they're getting a tax break with this tax plan. It isn't popular. A lot has to do with what I saw yesterday, because I was not here. I was able to flip around to see how the coverage. It was 45 minutes of literally nothing but negative coverage. I was actually laughing out loud at some of it, because some of them just say flat out tax breaks. President Obama said we have to cut the corporate tax rate. They didn't even know they were insulting their own cause and their own party. With some of their statements and beliefs.
Brian, I heard yesterday somebody on this channel say that the tax cuts that were signed by both houses of the Congress would only benefit major corporations and CEOs, America's rich people.
Yeah, that's
not even logical.
Every Democrat's been saying that.
They have been.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I mentioned the South Lawn, big celebration. The people who made it possible lined the steps there on just below the Truman balcony. If you missed some of it, here it is.
It's the largest tax cut in the history of our country, and reform, but tax cut.
Mr. President, you fulfilled the promise you made to millions of Americans struggling in this economy. A middle-class miracle, and that's exactly what the Congress passed today.
What we did last night and what the House finished this morning means America is going to start growing again. Thank you, Mr. President, for all you're doing.
What this represents is a promise that each and every one of us made to the American people last year is a promise that is kept today.
We're going to keep fighting, and we're going to make this the greatest presidency that we've seen, not only in generations, but maybe ever.
This is a great day for our country, a great day for our economy, and a great day for America. Thank you, Mr. President.
This is a big day for America.
As the New York Times says, it's a bet. It's a bet that if you give the American people more of their money, you give corporations more freedom, they're going to bring their money back, they're going to invest here and give raises.
Hasn't even been 24 hours, and they're already doing that, Brian.
Yeah.
They're giving money back to their employers. Look at some of these companies. AT&T, 200,000 of their employees are getting, right before Christmas, $1,000 each. They're also going to spend more capital spending. They're going to invest $1 billion. Then there's Wells Fargo, their hourly rate going up to $15 an hour, and they're donating $400 million to nonprofit organizations.
Fifth Third Bank is raising their minimum pay to $15 an hour, plus everybody gets a $1,000 one-time bonus.
Everybody.
Unbelievable. Comcast has 100,000 employees who are going to be giving $1,000 bonuses
to the non-executives.
Yep, and they're going to invest $50 billion in infrastructure, which every company needs to do, and now that they've got the big tax cut, they can. And Boeing is going to put $300 million into an employee and charitable investment fund. So clearly, when you lower the top rate for corporations from 35 to 21, they got 14% to suddenly give back to the people.
Well, what they didn't give is as big marginal individual rate reductions they wanted to, because they did it through reconciliation, only 51 votes. They couldn't do it as massive as they can. And a lot of people pointing out to in 10 years, these rates expire. So people are saying, why do corporations have permanent? Why do individuals have temporary? Well, the hope is, as many of the Bush tax cuts stuck around, except for the top bracket, that these will stick around too. The Democrats did not waste any time telling you how bad your life's going to be.
Now, we know they're popping champagne down Pennsylvania Avenue. There are only two places where America's popping champagne: the White House and the corporate boardrooms, including Trump Tower. Otherwise, Americans have a lot to regret.
After all the president's promises, after all Republicans' brazenly transparent misrepresentations to the American people, the true face of what Republicans stand for has been revealed.
Well, it is a victory for billionaires like Donald Trump. It's a victory for wealthy campaign contributors like the Koch brothers. But this is a disaster for the American people.
And that is a story they are pushing, that it's a disaster for the American people. That's the political left. But you look at somebody like Peter Morici, he's an economics professor at the University.
He's an expert. He studies this.
He does, and he looked at all that stuff people have been saying, and he says, he calls him on it. He says, that's just not true.
Chuck Schumer just likes to put a rock on the neck of the American worker and say, hey, Mr. Obama said it's good for you, so wear this for the next 4 years until we get rid of Mr. Trump. I got some bad news for Mr. Schumer. I think that Mr. Trump's going to be around when this thing gets traction.
That's the last thing he wants to hear.
And that'll be really 2019, right? 2018, you'll see so you'll see your paycheck change, but you'll be filing under the old rules. You'll really feel it more next year.
You know, and the debate on the rich people, though, we live in New York, very liberal state. Connecticut, liberal state.
High tax.
High taxes, high taxes. There are a lot of wealthy people here. If you don't believe me, walk down Fifth Avenue and meet with a real estate agent and ask them how much these apartments go for. Some of them go for, $25 million, $50 million. There are so many wealthy, beyond belief wealth here, and they're including the president. The president pays taxes here in New York, I would assume.
He's a New York resident, absolutely.
So they're going to be paying more because they're in the high state taxes, high tax states.
And yesterday I went to my town and I prepaid my property taxes because I'd heard on the Fox News channel people say, if you can, you should, because that's going to go away for the most part next year. There were 7 people in line when I got there yesterday. So many people were trying to do just that. And Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey for another month, he said yesterday that particularly in New Jersey, go ahead and make your state taxes deductible at the state level. I mean, if they're going to have state levels that are sky high, why not do it? Because they're going to spend the money other ways.
Right. You know, that you mentioned those apartments, $25 million. Yeah. That's why Jillian could only get one when you moved here.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I was like, I wanted to, but let me just settle for one.
You have to have one. You got to watch your budget.
Prepay your taxes.
Yes, exactly. So I can afford to. Never. Okay, let's get to this breaking news that we're following, guys. Starting with the Fox News alert. Dozens of people are hurt, bodies sent flying into the air when a driver deliberately plows through a crowd of people. It happened at a cable car stop in Melbourne, Australia. 19 people are hurt, 4 of them critically. The driver is in custody.
At a time of the year when so many families are celebrating the end to the year, doing their Christmas shopping, making plans for what ought to be a festive season, we have seen an horrific act, an evil act, an act of cowardice perpetrated against innocent bystanders.
The driver was known to police and has a history of drug and mental problems. Right now, there are no links to terror. Also breaking right now, U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis visiting Guantanamo Bay overnight, offering holiday greetings to the troops. Mattis is the first Pentagon chief to visit Gitmo since Donald Rumsfeld in 2002. The trip comes amid uncertainty over the Trump administration's policy on continued use of the military prison, where 41 prisoners remain in detention. While you were sleeping, history being erased in a major American city. Cranes taking down 2 Confederate statues in parks in Memphis, Tennessee. The memorials honoring Jefferson Davis and Nathan Bedford Forrest. It comes just one day after the city council voted to sell the public parks to private entities. The statues will now be preserved in an undisclosed location. And moments ago, Kensington Palace releasing Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's official engagement pictures. The couple posing at a royal estate near Windsor Castle, where they will get married on May 19th. Prince Harry and the American actress announced their engagement last month. Her ring has jewels once owned by Harry's late mother, Princess Diana. I think they're such a beautiful couple, aren't they? I love looking at those pictures.
I know.
What, Steve? You look confused.
Well, I am confused. We knew they were going to get married, what, a month ago?
Uh-huh.
So now the pictures are coming out?
Yes, because you get engaged, and then you take your engagement photos.
Oh,
and
it's
then you
a
get
process.
married.
All right.
Why can't they afford color pictures?
You know, sometimes people just can't afford that these days, Brian.
Royalty.
He's the second child.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, coming up in just minutes, Ivanka Trump will join us to weigh in on that historic tax victory for her dad and our president.
She played a critical role.
She did. Plus, making your list and checking it twice. Well, if you're going to buy something from Amazon, Todd Pyro right now down at the Fulfillment Center here in New York. Todd.
Steve, otherwise known as Santa's Workshop, we are here at the Amazon Fulfillment Center. Santa's helpers working really hard to make sure you last-minute procrastinators have all the items you need for Christmas. More from this basement where all the magic happens when Fox and Friends comes back after this break.
To go gliding in a one-horse sleigh. Giddy up, jingle horse, pick up your feet.
All right, the countdown to Christmas. 4 days to go, unless you have a different calendar.
Todd Pyro is live inside the Amazon Prime Hub in New York City with more on the mad rush for deliveries.
Hey, mad rush is definitely the right phrase to use. I'm joined by Stephanie Landry. I like to call her Mrs. Claus, but her official title is VP of Amazon Prime Now. So explain how intense it is this time of year.
This is a huge time of year for Amazon. We are so busy. It's kind of like our Super Bowl. We're preparing all year for this. We start thinking about Christmas all the way in spring. So this is a really big week for us, and we're really excited to deliver for customers.
Now, as a guy, I often get a bad rap for being a procrastinator. But regardless of your gender, if you're a procrastinator, Christmas is right around the corner. Can you still order things and get them by Christmas?
You can absolutely still get things in time for Christmas. Today is the last day for free 2-day shipping with Prime. But if you go to Amazon.com/holiday shipping, you can see we have same-day options, we have next-day options, and in over 30 cities in the U.S., Prime Now, which is the facility we're in right now, will deliver up till 11:59 on Christmas Eve. So we are kind of like Santa's helpers.
Okay, how long does it take for these amazing men and women to actually find something when it comes in the order system?
Well, it's actually really easy because the computers are doing a lot of the work. So these guys are hustling around and figuring out where to go, but the algorithms are actually telling them exactly where to go to get every product. So it's not actually that hard to find it.
Okay, let's go down one of these aisles because this is just amazing to me. So we are here in this aisle right now, and you're looking at this thing and you're asking yourself, okay, how does Star Wars in the same area as melatonin and Fiji water? Explain why that's all together.
So this is an online store, and we don't merchandise our shelves in order to be attractive to customers. We make sure that when the product comes in, it can get into the shelves as quickly as possible, and we don't really care where the stuff goes. The computers are the ones that are worrying about where things are. So while it may look, like chaos to us, it's organized chaos to the algorithms that are telling the pickers where to get the products.
Stephanie, thank you very much. All right, Steve, Ainsley, and Brian, last time I picked an item for you. What I want you to do now is tell me what item you want me to go find in this amazing warehouse here. And I'm going to see if I can find it by the end of the show. If I can, I'll tweet it out.
I've got something. Find Brian's book because it's or Ainsley's book. Either one. Great gift for Christmas.
Find Andrew Jackson and find
sold
Ainsley's.
out.
What?
They're all sold out. I'm not joking. We looked.
Really?
We couldn't find them. All sold out. Next item.
Just at that place, though, because when I go on Amazon, you can buy it on Amazon.
What about the Dyson hair dryer?
The hair dryer, the Dyson hair dryer. It's $400,
Dyson
but it
hair
looks
dryer.
great.
I'll toss it on back to you. I'm off. Stephanie?
Okay. Very good. There he goes. Wait a minute. They have a
Everything's on one
computer.
aisle.
He doesn't have to look.
All right, 20 minutes now after the hour. Senator Bob Corker's motivation behind his yes vote is being revealed, and now some are calling it into question. Some claiming he snuck in a last-minute tax deduction for himself. What's the truth? The senator wants to set the record straight, and he's got a message for the president about fake news straight ahead.
That's right. The Corker kickback is fake news. Meanwhile, a Christmas classic like you've never heard it, played with guns.
Lawmakers passing much-needed tax reform this week, but one senator's motivation for voting yes is under fire. Listen.
Senator Corker announced his decision to support the final bill, and he is facing backlash over a last-minute change to the legislation being dubbed the Corker kickback.
The 20% deduction for pass-through income, also now being called the Corker kickback, would cost the government alone, just by that change.
But the senator said he had nothing to do with the provision. So has Senator Corker been a victim of the fake news trend, just like President Trump, that many people thought was just a slogan? Tennessee Senator Bob Corker, Chairman of Foreign Relations, and I would have to say one of the most respected on both sides of the aisle in the Senate chamber. Senator, what is the Corker kickback?
Look, this is a travesty that something like this would be put forth. Look, the fact is, this was a provision that came from the House of Representatives. Brian, I've had zero impact on a word of the tax policy. I focused on deficits. The reporter that wrote about this knew I was unaware of the provision. I sat down with leadership on Thursday and walked through the differences between the House and Senate bill as it was actually being published, if you will. And this was not a provision that was even brought up. The reporter calls, he knows I'm unaware of it, and then all of a sudden turns it around as if this had some impact on a decision that I'd already made. So the president called yesterday. We had a warm conversation about numbers of issues. I told him that I'd had a healthy respect for the media. I deal with them all the time, and you know, to attack the media has not been something I've done. But I had a newfound empathy for him in watching how a totally debunked story, debunked by everybody involved, Orrin Hatch, Kevin Brady, the guys that actually wrote this bill, knew I had nothing whatsoever to do with it. But then you have this reporter who says this. All of a sudden, people that I respect in the news media, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, people start printing this as if it's true. A social media phenomenon generates from this, and I've never ever in my life used the word fake news until today. I actually understand what it is the president has been dealing with.
And roughly, I know you don't like to go verbatim because it's a confidence between you two, but roughly, what was his reaction when you told him that? Did he laugh? Did he empathize?
Yeah, he just mentioned that he'd been dealing with this for over a year. Look, I'm sorry. I've witnessed it firsthand. It is not good. I know other people have witnessed the same. Look, as I mentioned to him, just have a newfound empathy for what he and others have been dealing with in this regard.
And both of you are fighters. You didn't get successful in your business without mixing it up, even though you have different approaches. So your instinct is to fight back. And I watched you on CNN with Wolf Blitzer, and he asked the same question 9 times about something you know fundamentally didn't happen.
Yeah. No, I know, and again, you know, Brian, I think it's difficult for people to understand that when you make a decision on these big votes, you've got to decide, is the country better off with this or not? And you've got to make a decision based on all the facts you have. Look, I've been very concerned about deficits here in our country. I think people know that. There's no doubt that over a $43 trillion revenue base over the next 10 years, there is the possibility of a $500 billion gap. But at the end of the day, to cause our companies to be competitive around the world, to keep companies from locating in other places, to continue to build on this dynamism that we have here in our nation, I felt like this was the right thing to do. But yes, unbelievable the way this has been handled.
Well, Senator, real quick, you're Chairman of Foreign Relations. You want to be tough on Russia, and this administration has been labeled as being weak on Russia. Something happened yesterday significant. You've decided to, and the president confirmed, lethal weapons to the Ukraine to take on those separatists backed by Russian government, and sanction 5 more Russian officials.
That's right. Yeah, Brian, I passed that bill, okay, that encouraged this with a Democratic counterpart. We could not Get President Obama to send them any defensive lethal weapons. They sent them night vision goggles that were used. They sent them MREs, these little prepackaged meals. We could not get them to do this. And here, this president at this time with his national security team is finally doing what people on both sides of the aisle have tried to get administrations to do. So I'm thankful it's happening. And certainly it shows a pushback. I mean, these weapons are to defend Ukraine against Russia's aggression. So very happy this has occurred.
See if people jot that down too. Senator Bob Corker, thanks so much for clearing up the record. Appreciate it.
I know Ivanka's coming on. She played a big role in all that has happened relative to tax reform, and she deserves a lot of credit for what has happened.
Yeah, I will relay that, and she might be watching in the green room. Senator, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I did hear that behind the scenes as well. She will not give herself any credit. Senator Bob Corker just did. Thanks. Meanwhile, a high school team drops the term freshman because it may offend someone. The new rule that's turning the school gender inclusive. Plus, Ivanka Trump, as Senator Corker was kind enough to tease, her reaction to the historic tax reform pass. She played a big role. That's next.
You know, a lot of people want a big Christmas gift, and yesterday, according to the Republicans, America got it with a great big tax break. Joining us right now from the White House, Ivanka Trump, special advisor to the president, who also happens to be her father. Ivanka, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Congratulations. Thank you, thank you. What a day to be here to celebrate.
No kidding. And your name actually has been linked to this for a while because you were pushing an increase in the child tax credit. In the ultimate final bill, it essentially is doubled. And I know you also had Mike Lee with you, the senator from Utah, and Marco Rubio as well. Explain to the folks at home what it's going to do for them.
Well, the president was very clear that he really wanted to ensure that this bill accomplished two goals of enabling American businesses to grow and be competitive and therefore lead to wage increase for working Americans, but to also target relief at middle-income families. And the child tax credit is an incredible vehicle to do that. We all know the cost of raising children has gone up exponentially in this country, as until recently wages have stagnated. So raising children is very expensive, but it's the most important investment that we as a country can make in the future. This is the next generation of American workers, American entrepreneurs and innovators. So the child tax credit was doubled. The refundability was expanded. Very importantly, the standard deduction, the standard for the average family, the standard deduction was actually doubled, which is enormously beneficial. The child independent tax care credit was maintained as part of the bill. The adoption credit was maintained. A lot of good stuff in there. Well, when you look at the things that were cut, the things that were cut were the loopholes that benefited lobbyists and the special interests. The things that were maintained or expanded were things like the child tax credit that would have such meaningful impact for everyday Americans. One of the things that was really so amazing to me in traveling across the country is just the sense of financial fragility most American families experience, even middle-income American families. The average American family can't come up with $400 in the event of an emergency. And my father is committed to changing that. This administration is committed to changing that. And what we're doing to encourage economic growth through deregulation is one of the mechanisms. But tax reform is an enormous vehicle to create the type of growth that will lend itself to prosperity for all Americans. And this is a historic milestone, a historic accomplishment. We're all incredibly excited. We've been working so closely with Congress and as an administration unified in achieving the president's goals.
Yeah, Ivanka, some of these companies are already benefiting. It has not even been 24 hours, and workers at some of the companies that we all use on a daily basis are benefiting. For instance, AT&T, 200,000 of their employees are getting $1,000 each before Christmas. And then at Wells Fargo, the hourly wages are now going up to $15 an hour. Fifth Third Bank, their wages are going up to $15 an hour. Comcast, the non-executives, the people who aren't the bosses that make the big bucks, 100,000 of them are getting getting $1,000 bonuses. So you're saying some of these families that are $400 away, they can't cover an emergency. They're living paycheck to paycheck. $1,000, that's really big right before Christmas. What a gift for them.
It is such important, meaningful relief, and really, Ainsley, this is just the beginning. It's just starting. So we know that this is going to only increase and grow as companies bring back money that have been parked overseas, as companies reinvest in their businesses. One of the incredible elements of this plan is the fact that for 5 years, 100% of capital expensing can be written off by businesses. So it enables them to modernize, to invest back into their businesses. So I'm deeply passionate about entrepreneurship and encouraging American innovation, and I believe the tax reform is so critical for us to be competitive and create that next generation of American entrepreneur and small business owner, and give them the confidence to launch their business and give them the confidence to invest in their business and invest in their workforce.
But if these major corporations don't take advantage of this opportunity and do the right thing instead of putting it into the executives' pockets, they're never going to get it again. But I want to move forward. Moments ago, I spoke to Senator Bob Corker behind the scenes. He was one of the no votes originally that became a yes vote. Senator Flake, Senator Collins, others were no, and they came aboard. You played a role in that. You never want to bring attention to yourself. I respect that. But he brought attention to you. Listen. Oh, we don't have it? He essentially said that Ivanka played a major role behind the scenes in getting us to a yes vote in order to explain further what he needed and what the rest of the Senate needed. Can you bring us behind the scenes?
Yeah, and it was a great privilege to be able to do so. We worked incredibly well as a team. I think we've, over the course of the year, learned how to work as a collective and with a unified voice, and you saw that. So I spent a lot of time on behalf of the administration and with members of the administration, Gary Cohen, Secretary Mnuchin, our whole team at OLA, on the Hill and talking to different senators. I spent a lot of time with Senator Corker as well, and he had real integrity around this process. So I will say that for sure. He had his concerns. He felt that his concerns were adequately addressed, and he really believes that tax relief coupled with the administration's deregulatory actions will create the growth that will start to erode and ultimately eliminate the national debt that has been incurred over the last several decades.
He never asked for a Corker kickback on some pass-through companies that have been talked about. Am I correct? That is not something you worked out?
Right. No, absolutely not.
All right. Well, Ivanka, you know, go ahead.
Oh, no, I will say